Archivism was a fucking mistake. So as you might be aware, I run a fan site for Night at the Museum, simply known as the Natum Search. It's mostly an archival project where we look for lost media. But what you may not know is I run two other Night at the Museum fan sites. The first being Bramble Woods, which is a webcomic I run with Creative Chaos. They make the art, I help write, and I mostly do the webmastering part of it. And I also run an adults-only website known as Evening at the Archive, which is the adults-only tag. That's where I archive all the stuff that is not approved by the Vatican. And in my journey to find all of this stuff, I found what I genuinely believe is the worst fanfiction I have ever read in my entire life. And I am going to share it with you because I need to inflict psychic damage upon everybody. So this fanfiction was written by somebody on fanfiction.net, simply known as Haters Gonna Hate, _ don't hate. They joined November 7th, 2011, and last updated their profile December 30th, 2011, and has only written one story. And that story is the one we're going to be discussing today. They published it on November 25th, 2011. So, in the words of Rebel Taxi, they showed up, and fucked off. This fanfiction, it is rated M, which is the fanfiction.net equivalent of explicit. It is 3 chapters, 6,233 words. Completed. It is simply titled, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Oh boy! So this is where I tell you that this video is not scripted at all. I am just going full stream of consciousness. I haven't been able to read this fic. It's not that I haven't had the time, but it's just that I haven't had the strength. Whenever I encounter this fic, I cannot read it. Like, not to say magical thinking or anything, but it's like barrier of sorts that prevents me from comprehending the words on the page. I don't have the strength, I can't do it. But that was me 2 years ago. And I think I've worked up the strength now to attempt to read this fic. And I'm very excited to dramatically read this with all of you today. This will be very unlike my other fanfiction readings. I will be reading it as per usual, but I will be reacting in real time because I have not read this fic in its entirety. I have only been able to skim it. I could not comprehend it. It is like an eldritch horror. Nah, but we're being for real here. It's just another bad fanfiction posted to the internet. But this is where we get, like... Okay, I'm stalling at this point. Let's just dive right in. And thank you, everybody, for 1,000 subscribers. I know you didn't want this to be the 1,000 subscriber special. But that's what you're getting. Okay. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by Haters Gonna Hate, Don't Hate. Okay. 10 a.m. had approached, and so did a group of semi-excited college students waiting to get a tour of the Smithsonian. Larry opened the doors and welcomed them. How's everybody doing? I'm Larry, and I'll serve as your tour guide for today. The tour went smoothly, and people were awed at the sight of the aircraft exhibit and were overtaken by the miniature displays, until a young man asked, "What floor are we on?" Larry turned and said, "The historic events floor. Why?" The emo child... Oh my god. The emo child pointed to a room to his right and looked back at Larry. Oh, that's the European history room. Looks violent. What the hell happened there? Okay, first of all, don't say hell. And secondly, it's only one specific event that's displayed here. There are plenty of other events that took place. On with the tour. The others walked away. However, The young emo. Okay, I'm sorry. Just describing a emo as like a type of person. The young emo searched around the room to figure out what took place. Hey, Marilyn Manson, don't dawdle, let's go. That's not my name. Okay, fine, what is it? Damien. Alright, Damien, let's go. The young boy sighed and caught up with the group. 10 p.m. came, and doors were locked. Larry let out an exhausted breath. 9 tours in one day. I need a break. Suddenly, a blue toy truck bumped into Larry's leg. Howdy there, Gigantor. Good evening, my liege. A small cowboy and Roman general. There was only 2 people that could match that description. Jed, Octavius. Sorry to be in a rush, but you mind moving your foot there? What? Why? I'll give you a clue. He's made of bones, and we have one of his ribs. A very familiar dinosaur came charging at full speed towards that toy truck. Like lightning, Larry jumped out of the way, and the 2 miniatures zoomed off. Unfortunately, he underestimated Rexy's size and was flung across the room by his vertebrae tail. Luckily, he was only lifted about a foot in the air, and so he slid across the floor. Somehow I expected that to happen. Holy crap, that was funny. Larry turned his head to see a young boy wearing tattered pinstriped clothes. Oh no. Okay, we're getting right to it, aren't we? Who are you? Who are you? Larry Daly, the night guard. The boy looked about 14 or 16 and had short blonde hair that was parted to the left side of his head. His bangs curved around his right eye. He looks exactly like a young Leonardo DiCaprio. He even has the same face, eye color, and voice, Larry thought to himself. Oh my god. No. Okay. I'm sorry, I have to take a second. Are we really describing a Holocaust victim the way we're describing Leonardo DiCaprio? Okay. The boy walked over and helped Larry to his feet. I saw it coming too, and I should have yelled duck. Yeah, that would have been nice. Like I said earlier, who are you? Not necessary, but what is necessary is how is that Not necessary, but what is necessary is how that cup is moving. He pointed to a glass of water on the desk that, for some reason, was creating ripples. The revving of a truck came from behind the confused night guard. Well, run, Larry, Rex, about backup! Why the fuck can I not do Jed? Well, run, Larry, Rex, about backup! An entire herd of T-Rex tore through the room, nearly crushing the small miniatures and the 2 larger men. Quickly, the blonde boy snatched the toy truck and jumped behind the desk. The bone beasts finally left, and both Larry and the boy stood up. Now you really need a break, said the boy. Larry took the truck and held it at eye level. Are you 2 all right? That's not Octavius. The closer you are to death, the more you feel alive, Gigantor. The toy was set down, and the cowboy and the general drove off. Ugh. The toy was set down, and the cowboy and the general drove off. Hey, what was that brown thing on top of the bones? Brown thing? Yeah, it had a tail and fur. Larry came into realization on what the blonde saw. Dexter! Larry went running off to find the mischievous capuchin. That was weird. And now I'm bored. The young blonde decided to walk around and meet the new exhibits that were brought here not too long ago. A couple hours passed when he came upon a room lined with jewels and jackal-headed statues. A man stood in the middle of the room reading something, his back turned to the boy, unaware of his arrival. The blonde approached the crowned man, listening to what he was saying, and as he stood before his people, the great king spoke. As long as I walk these lands, you will never know a day of unhappiness. His arm rose to the air, and the people rejoiced at their king and their future lives. He closed his book and said with delight, These stories never cease to amaze me. Excuse me? The older man turned around and smiled at the blonde boy. Well, hello there. And who might you be? What were you reading? Stories that my parents used to read to me. The man was slightly distracted by the boy's attire. Why are you wearing that? It's what the soldiers gave me to wear. The man continued to stare at the young boy, but soon noticed the boy was looking at his book. He reached out and moved a piece of hair out of his eye and behind his ear. What is your name? He remained silent. What is your name? He remained silent. My name is Akmenra. The boy looked up and met the pharaoh's eyes. Tell me a story. Akmenra was slightly confused at why he hadn't said his name, but liked how interested he was in the book. Okay, smiled the pharaoh. The two walked over to a gold couch with red cushions and made themselves comfortable. What story were you reading? The story of Ramesses, a man who brought his kingdom faith after a great war between his brother. What? Oh. The story of Ramesses, a man who brought his kingdom faith after a great war between his brothers. The boy moved closer to Akmenra. I want to hear that one. He smiled and told the blonde of the war. The story began with Ramesses and his brother Khnum standing by their father on his deathbed. Ramesses, Khnum, my sons, for many days I had feared the end of my time. But now that I am old and stale, it is time for one of you to rule the kingdom. Khnum expected himself to be chosen, for he was older, taller, and stronger than his younger sibling. However, Ramesses was smarter and more caring of the two. He was told to rule the kingdom instead of Khnum. Their father's words brought joy to one man and hatred to the other. Several years passed in which the events of Khnum's disappearance, Ramesses' ceremony of becoming pharaoh, and the sudden arrival of a new kingdom took place. 10 years after the death of Khepru, the father of Ramesses, an Anubis guard rushed into the pharaoh's temple holding his bleeding arm. An army is approaching! Ramesses sent his warriors and warned the people of his kingdom to hide and prepare for possible intruders. A 9-hour war struck Ramesses' kingdom. All warriors on both sides died, leaving Ramses to fight one-on-one with the opposing kingdom's leader. Saw it coming. The blonde boy added in his commentary. He crawled onto Akmenra's shoulders, attempting to look at the pages of the bronze-colored book. Now what? Akmenra let out a chuckle and replied, Okay, back to the story. Ramesses stood wearing an Anubis headguard and wielding a golden lance with a red jeweled handle at his nemesis, who wore an eagle headguard and whose weapon of choice was a steel-edged sword with a black obsidian skull at the end of the handle. Clanks screeched through the wind and over the kingdom as leader and leader fought for victory. Ramses used his last bit of strength to uppercut his opponent, knocking his headguard off and slamming him to the ground. Ramses placed the edge of his blade to the other man's neck, but stopped. The offender opened his eyes and spoke in a whisper. Ramses. He dropped his sword and fell to his knees. Khnum? Is it you, brother? The other man placed his hand behind Ramses' head. My brother. Tears filled Ramses' eyes as he embraced his brother in his arms. I've missed you, Khnum. The memory of you never left my mind. A sudden wetness slipped down Ramses' thigh. What? It was blood seeping from his brother's neck. The jugular had been sliced by his lance. Oh, thank God. Oh, my God. Okay, I've read enough fanfiction that is not approved by the Vatican. The phrase "a sudden wetness," it has a fight or flight response in me. Ramses knew what was about to happen, and the memory of you will never leave my mind. With what strength still lingered through Khnum's body, the grip around his brother's self grew tighter. I love you, Ramesses, my blood, my kin. With the last air in his lungs, Khnum released his final words. My brother. His eyes closed as his head fell onto his brother's neck. Ramses held him for several more moments before picking up his brother and carrying him back to the kingdom. That day, Khnum was placed in a sarcophagus and was given a proper pharaonic burial. Ramses never wanted to feel the level of sadness ever again, and never wanted his people to feel the same either. However, with the destruction of their homes and the blood shed by the kingdom's warriors, all the people were overcome with negative emotions. He walked to the edge of his balcony, and as he stood before his people, the great king spoke. Do not cry, my friends. As long as I walk these lands, you will never know a day of unhappiness. His arm rose to the air, and the people rejoiced at their king and their future lives. That's the line you said when I first walked in, spoke the blonde-headed boy. As before, Akmenra closed his book and smiled once again at the story he had read. It is a very strong piece of words. Can you tell me another story tomorrow? The pharaoh loved how excited he was about hearing the tales. Of course I can. The pharaoh loved how excited he was about hearing the tales. Of course I can. The boy's cerulean eyes lit up with anticipation of another tale of battle. 10-minute warning. Return to your designated exhibits. I repeat, 10-minute warning. That sounded like the guy who got hit by the dinosaur. A toy truck went by at top speed past the door, being chased by Rexy, obviously. Damn it, Dexter, I said 10-minute warning. Larry said, yelled Larry Day. Fuck. Damn it, Dexter, I said 10-minute warning, yelled Larry Daly of Daily Devices. Both boys sitting on the couch cocked their head in confusion. The blonde shook his head back to reality. Well, I better be hitting the old dusty trail. Morning, Akmenra. The boy stood up and walked to exit the pharaoh's tomb. Wait! Quickly, the boy turned around. You didn't tell me your name. Smiling, he replied, William Schultz. Will, huh? Well, goodbye then, Will. A 5-minute warning was called as Will ran to get to his exhibit. The sooner I get to my display, the sooner I close my eyes, the sooner I'll get to hear my story. Poof. What the heck? Hold on. What the heck? What the hell did I hit? Hey, don't say hell. Why aren't you at your exhibit? It was Larry who Will collided with. I was getting there before you blocked me, and the name's Will in case you were curious. Fine, whatever. Just get to your display. Screw you. The next night, a very excited Will jumped out of his display case and rushed to Akmenra's tomb. I wonder what story Ak's gonna tell. I hope it's violent. The blonde's thoughts were interrupted by the shouts coming from a room down the hallway. Oh, come on, I'm bad. Hey, I can show you how bad I am. What is that? Will thought to himself. I'm sorry, you don't seem very bad, just vaguely grouchy. I'm sorry, you don't seem very bad, just vaguely grouchy. Will moved closer to the people talking and hid behind a pillar. Is that you breathing? Because I can't hear myself think. In frustration, Darth Vader knocked Oscar's trash can lid on his head. Goodbye now. The two angry men left the room mumbling curses under their breath. Will, due to his curious nature, approached the man that nudged their evilness and tapped his shoulder. The man turned and said, Oh my God, you're not seriously trying out, are you? Trying out for what? I was just wondering what that bug thing on your head was. It is not a bug thing. It is a crown bestowed upon me on the day I became... It is a crown bestowed upon me the day I became a pharaoh. Still looks like a bug. Anyways, you're not Pharaoh. Akmenra is. Don't speak when I am... What did you say? A suspicious tone rose into his voice. I said Akmenra's Pharaoh. Did you say speak? Say it with me. Speak. The Pharaoh moved closer to Will. How do you know my brother? I'm sorry, are you from Britain? You have a weird sound to your voice. It's making me really uncomfortable. Answer the question. How do you know my brother? The blonde boy suddenly realized who he was talking to. You're Akmenra. I see you've heard of me. You're the guy everyone's been talking about. Will didn't know what to do. He was face to face with a man who was trying to take over the Smithsonian. Will, where are you? Will, where are you? It was Akmenra. He was looking for him. Without thinking, Will called out, In here! In a matter of seconds, Akmenra was standing in the room holding the bronze storybook. Akmenra. Ah, good to see you again, brother. Kamenra's brown eyes gazed at Kamenra's brown eyes glanced down at the book under his brother's arm. You still have that waste of paper with you, I see. Our mother told us these stories, the same mother who banished me from home. The frightened Will hid behind Akmenra. Let's go back to your tomb. In a moment, my friend. His green eyes traveled from Will back to his poor excuse for a brother. I just want to know why you're doing this. What right do you have to strike fear into innocent civilians? A simple right to freedom. For centuries I've been forced into isolation, but now I have come back to life. I will never go back. A few seconds of silence filled the room before Akmanra spoke. My question has been answered. We will leave now. Both the blonde and Pharaoh were almost out the doorway when Kamenra said, A word of caution. Consider yourselves at the top of my to-die list. Those words echoed through Will's head. It had not been the first time he was told he was going to die. Horrible thoughts of death and the soldiers that tortured him passed through his self-conscious. Voices of hell ran over his mind. Tears filled his eyes as he ran from Akmanra, attempting to run away from his own thoughts. The concerned Pharaoh tried to catch up, but lost him when he turned the corner. Will, please, where are you? The blond boy ran to a place where he knew no one would find him. He ran back to his exhibit. Everyone avoided that area because of how disturbing everything was. Akmanra continued to call out to Will, but never received an answer. He then spotted Sacagawea and Roosevelt walking through the miniature displays. Sir Theodore, madam, have you seen a blond boy, my height, blue eyes, and tattered clothing running by? Oh, please say yes. Sorry, sport. I haven't seen you, lad. Sacagawea quickly asked. Were the clothes grey and black pinstriped? Yes, they were. And what was his last name? Schultz. Why? Schultz is a German name. The only areas that display Europe are on the 3rd level. The historic events floor! Oh, no. Sacagawea's delicate hand covered her mouth in shock. What's wrong, my dear? I think I know what display he's in. Please, you must tell me where it is. Oh, no. Okay. Her hand slowly came away from her face and onto Akmanra's shoulder. He's part of the Holocaust exhibit. The Pharaoh knew of the Holocaust and nearly broke into tears. Why did you write this? That's why his clothing is tattered. That also explains who he meant by the soldiers. I remember he had a red circle sewed on his clothes. That also explains what he meant by the soldiers. I remember he had a red circle sewed on his clothes. What does that mean? I wish I knew, but I don't. Thank you so much for your help. Akmanra ran to the elevator and pressed the 3 button. I've been a fool. How could I not have been more observant? Please be there, Will. Unfortunately, the young blonde was not there, or at least not anymore. His shirt was on the ground in front of his display. Oh my god. Nazi flags hung from the ceiling and pictures of the camps lined the walls. Blood-red paint covered the exhibit, and white tile floors stretched from wall to wall. Akmanra moved closer to Will's glass display case and read the label. Here is a teenage male by the name of William Schultz, who wears the official camp uniform. How can they give an event as horrid as this as an exhibit? Akmanra continued to look around, trying to figure out what the circle on Will's shirt meant. He found his answer when he read a large chart framed on the wall. All the people kept in these camps wore pieces of fabric on their clothing that represented the reason they were there. The Pharaoh's eyes scrolled down the list and saw that a yellow star meant Jew, a green cross meant a religion other than Catholicism, a blue triangle meant not a German, and a black arrow simply meant that the person was not the perfect race, blonde with blue or green eyes. However, with this information, Akmanra couldn't figure out what the red circle meant. The bottom part of the chart had been torn off and most likely would have said what it stood for. There has to be more information on these clothes. After searching through every piece of data he could find, Akmanra found a video file on the touchscreen information machine respectively named Holocaust Info. Come on, it's the Smithsonian. They would have used information. Hopefully this will shed some light on the situation, the Pharaoh said, pushing a button labeled Camp Clothing on the screen. As the chart had said, the computer discussed the meaning of the fabric pieces, but had yet to say the meaning of a red circle. I already know what the star, the square, and everything else means. What is the circle? As if on cue, the computer then stated, another piece worn was the red circle, which is given to people who were homosexual and were often the first people to be killed off. I don't think that's right. Okay, so I looked it up and that was a fucking lie. The only circle markings that were used on actual camp badges were the black circles on the punishment company inmates, the red and black circle for escape suspects, and the brown armbands that were given to special inmates. There was no red circle. I think this person is fully pulling it out of their ass. Akbenra's hand covered his mouth in shock. That is no reason to kill someone. He's a child. Oh God, now I have to find who knows what's going through his head. A sudden idea on where Will could be quickly came to him. That was only the first chapter. Okay. Oh God, it's already been 20 minutes. Okay. Okay, chapter 2. As Akbenra had expected, Will was in his tomb lying on the couch. The pharaoh had become concerned at the sight of him in a fetal position. The blonde's back was turned to him. Cautiously, Akbenra approached the young boy and was relieved at what he saw. Will had fallen into a deep sleep, holding the bronze storybook close to his chest. The pharaoh smiled and softly sat next to him. Glazing his fingers through the blonde's hair, the pharaoh spoke. Why would anyone want to harm you? Akbenra leaned down and pressed his lips against the boy's temple. A light sound occurred after he lifted his head, along with the voice of Will. Akbenra? Slowly, his body lifted and became level with Akbenra's. Cerulean eyes glanced down at the tattered shirt Akbenra had found. The pharaoh lifted the boy's chin with his hand to meet his eyes. I know I can't change the past, but I can create the future. I'm sorry for all that you went through. I will read you as many stories as you... The blonde pressed his lips hard against Akbenra's mouth, and for a moment the pharaoh was taken over by shock, but opened his mouth to Will's tongue when his bottom lip was lightly bit. The two plunged in vigorously in a tongue battle for dominance. Oh, Jesus. Oh my God, that is an ancient phrase. This really is a fic from 2011. Wait, hold on. Nope. We are... Oh my God, no. None of this is allowed on YouTube. Oh my God. I am not reading that. Okay, skipping all of that. Will sat up and embraced Akbenra close to his chest, tight in his arms. The blonde placed a loving kiss on his... The blonde placed a loving kiss on his love Akbenra's temple. You can't use love twice in one sentence. Marry me. The pharaoh's emerald eyes shot open in shock. What did you say? The two laid back slightly to face each other. Akbenra, will you marry me? Tears rolled down the man's cheeks as he said, yes. A half-hour passed by as Akbenra cradled Will's body in his arm, fingering through the soft topaz-tinted hair. The pharaoh, now fiancé, was pondering what kind of ceremony should take place on the day they take their vows. Akbenra pictured something traditional, yet fresh, where all of his friends could gather, and of course where he and his love could declare their unison. 10-minute warning. I repeat, 10-minute warning. Akbenra was slightly disappointed to have to leave Will, even if it only seemed a few seconds between night, fiancé. Ugh. Jesus, these fucking... This is the third time I have to say this line now. Akbenra was slightly disappointed to have to leave Will, even if it only seemed a few seconds between nights. Fiancé and fiancée should never be separated. I'll never let go of you. Hello, brother. Akbenra easily recognized the lisped voice. What are you doing here? Larry called a warning not too long ago. You should be leaving. I came to see him, said the wannabe pharaoh Kamun-Ra. I was curious to see who he was, and since he ran to you, I put two and two together, and, well, it appears I was right. You do know who he is. His name is William Schultz. Akbenra pressed his lips to Will's cheek. My fiancé. Is he now? So when's the wedding? I'm not telling you. Oh, yes, you will. See, I've known you for a long time, dear brother, And I, therefore, know that you always stick to tradition. Is it not traditional for the sibling of the groom or bride to evaluate whether or not a person is good enough to be wed? With a disgusted expression, Aquanra spoke. Yes. Have him come by my temple to be evaluated tomorrow night. He'll be there. He'll be there. A second announcement came over the intercom. 5-minute warning. 5-minute warning. Well, it appears it's time for me to go. And him too. Goodbye, Common-Ra. A strict don't fuck with me tone in his voice. That man left, and the young blonde was gently woken up. Will, it's time to get up. His eyes slowly opened, and were greeted by emerald-colored eyes. Larry's called a... Will didn't care about what Larry had to say. All he cared about was Aquan-Ra. So they fucked, and we must remember that Will is between the ages of 14 and 16, and Aquan-Ra, his age is never really actually stated, but we can infer from the fact that Rami Malek was 26 when he played him in 2006, that this man is in his mid-20s. Okay. I'm having a normal one. Chapter 3, we're in the home stretch, lads. Before Will left for his exhibit, Aquan-Ra informed him on the traditional wedding evaluation. The blonde assured him that he would go and make a good impression. Even if he denies our wedding, I will still be in unison with you, my love. The pharaoh gave the boy a kiss on the cheek and sent him off to his brother's temple. Common-Ra paced back and forth, waiting impatiently for the blonde's arrival. Where is he? Right here. The wannabe turned around and found Will standing directly behind him. Took you long enough? Get lost on the way here? Taking in a mental deep breath, the blonde spoke in a calm voice. How does the evaluation start? With your death! A sword lashed out at Will's neck, slicing his jugular. Only a king can marry, and I'm the rightful heir. You're not pharaoh and you never will be. The blonde laid on the floor, holding his neck firmly, attempting to restrain the blood flow. With this tablet, I am pharaoh. Capone? Capone? Yeah, boss. Set up the portal. Common-Ra tossed the golden tablet to the mafia leader and turned his attention back to Will. After my army is unleashed, you will be the first to die. Common-Ra! Aquan-Ra! The true pharaoh rushed to his love's aid. Are you all right? Yes, it's just a scratch. Common-Ra aimed his lance at the bleeding blonde. I assure you, there'll be more when I'm done. You stay the hell away from him. A smirk grew across his face. Since you care about him so much, you will be second to perish. Second? I've already promised him the first kill, and besides, I would love to see the look on your face as I drain the life out of him. Your boss, the portal thing is open. Excellent. Say your last words, brother. Common-Ra walked off, taking chants in his native language. The emerald-eyed pharaoh looked at his love in sadness as he watched The emerald-eyed pharaoh looked at his love in sadness as he watched blood pour down his chest. Will, shh, it's okay. You know what? This reminds me of that story. The story of Ramses. But I don't want you to have the same fate Khnum did. I'm not. A trickle of warm blood slipped out of the corner of his mouth and down his face. He died of jealousy. I'm leaving with love. Tears ran from the emerald eyes and fell upon weaves of topaz. The pharaoh held his love tightly. I promised you I wouldn't let you be harmed. I failed. The blonde moved the hand around his shoulder and placed it over his chest. Do you feel that? Aquan-Ra could feel Will's rhythm beneath his fingers. My heart still beats. You have not failed. My body may be bleeding, but my soul remains untouched, unharmed. The boy held the pharaoh's hand in his own. Do you, Aquan-Ra, take me, Will, to be your lawfully wedded husband, in sickness and in health, for rich or for poor, through good times and in bad, till death do we part. Wasn't your jugular sliced? The water from the emerald orbs... You're using orbs to describe eyes? Another tick on this being a 2011 fic. The water from the emerald orbs now leaked weaves The water from the emerald orbs now leaked waves of happiness. I do. And do you, William Schultz, take me to be your lawfully wedded husband, in sickness and in health, for rich or for poor, through good times and in bad, till the pharaohs were masked by warm lips. I do. The young blonde reached into his pocket and pulled out a gold ring studded in emeralds that corresponded Aquan-Ra's eyes. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce us husband and husband. Will's eyes suddenly rolled in the back of his head and closed shut. His frame became limp and collapsed against Aquan-Ra. My love! A loud shatter of glass echoed through the room, and all the bird warriors that came from the portal retreated back to where they came from. The pharaoh looked up in confusion and became overjoyed at the sight of Abraham Lincoln sending everything called upon from his brother's chants away. So, the climax of Battle of the Smithsonian is actively happening while this man is bleeding out? Okay. Completely unarmed and with no way of escaping, Kamun-Ra fled, along with the Eagle Warriors closing the portal behind him. All the people of the museum rejoiced in enthusiasm for how they could roam without worry. However, there was still one person who was feeling nothing but negativity. Sacagawea took notice of the sobbing pharaoh and went to his aid. The kind woman lightly touched the man's shoulder. It's going to be okay. How? How can it be okay if the person I love has left me? As if on cue, Larry shouted, Look! Aquan-Ra lifted his head and saw the golden tablet laying in front of the portal. He must have dropped it. Spoke Aquan-Ra. Sacagawea retrieved the tablet and brought it back to the pharaoh. Could it bring him back? I'm about to find out. He lifted the tablet in anticipation, but lowered it back down. What if it doesn't work? We're here for you, lad. It was Teddy that gave the young pharaoh a sign of hope. I as well, assured Sacagawea. Me too, spoke Larry. Everyone gathered around Aquan-Ra, speaking words of encouragement, giving the hope he so needed. Rexy roared, along with all the animals showing their own form of faith. A blue toy truck stopped in front of the Native American woman's knees. We're here for you too, partner. We believe in you, King Aquan-Ra. With hope now restored in Aquan-Ra's heart, he lifted the golden tablet once more and recited with soul, From the darkness of night to the light of the day, I come forth here, so hear me pray. Lead away all the evil that was forsaken, and bring me back what once was taken. A beam of light shot from the tablet and filled the room with a white shine. The glow ceased, and all eyes fell upon the blonde child in patience for a sign of life. No movement came from the body, not even the slightest sound. Aquan-Ra's head slumped between his shoulders. The native woman patted his shoulder to comfort him. Why did I just sneeze glitter? Will! Aquan-Ra! Cheers rang throughout the walls of the Smithsonian. Both kings stood up, and the blonde pharaoh spoke. As long as I walk these lands, you will never know another day of unhappiness. He rose his arm to the air, and the people rejoiced at their new king and their future lives. 5 years later.
And then what happened?
Spoke a young boy with rich brown hair and cerulean eyes as he climbed over his father's shoulders. Okay, back to the story. From a few feet in front of them, the sound of someone clearing their throat was heard. I called bedtime half an hour ago. The little boy jumped off the body he was laying on and ran to the one saying it was time for sleep.
But the story's not over yet. I want to hear the rest of it, Mommy.
Huh? Even though he knew he had to be consistent with him, he couldn't help but give in to the sapphire eyes that reminded him so much of the one he loved. Till the end of the story.
Yay!
The boy ran and jumped back onto the couch. And then straight to... Why do I even bother? He never listens. The child climbed onto the blonde man's lap and asked once again, Now what?
Now what?
The older man smiled and continued with the story. As long as I walk these lands, You will never know a day of... Akunra quietly walked over and joined his husband and child. You will never know a day of unhappiness. The pharaoh softly lifted the little boy and held him like a baby to his chest. The blue-eyed, bronze-haired child curled into a ball in his mother's arms. Akunra smiled, and in a lullaby-like voice, he looks just like you. Nah, he's way better looking than I am. The pharaoh laughed at his husband's remark. The two moved closer, Will embracing Akunra in his arms, and Akunra cradling their child. The blonde kissed his love's temple. I love you, Akunra. The emerald-eyed pharaoh met the other's warm lips. I love you, Will. The cerulean-eyed man entwined his right arm around Akunra's that were... Okay, this is a weird sentence. The cerulean-eyed man entwined his right arm around Akunra's arms that were holding their child and wrapped his left bicep around his husband's waist. And we both love you, spoke the pharaoh softly to the child sleeping in his arms. Will stroked the chocolate hair on his child's head. Ramses. Okay. So this is... I skipped over it because I need to comply with YouTube's terms of service. So... Okay. So, because Ramses called both of them mommy, it implies that one of them got pregnant? Okay. So, this is why this is the worst fic I've ever read. This is, and I'm going to move close to my mic for this so you can really understand it. Mpreg underage Holocaust fanfiction. And that is why this is the worst fanfic I think I've ever read. And I've been to some pretty deep places in this fandom. I have read fics that are clearly just streams of consciousness, that are just pure dialogue and bad grammar. I have read fics that are just straight up boring. I have read fics that aren't really my kink, but I can understand it. But I do genuinely think that this is the worst fanfiction in the entire fandom, simply because of its concept. Like, again, just to recap this story for you, the main character, William Schultz, is a Holocaust victim who is described as a young Leonardo DiCaprio. He is 14 to 16 years old. Underage Mpreg Holocaust fanfiction. I genuinely don't think I've ever read anything this bad, and I don't think I ever want to read anything this bad again. So, with that psychic damage taken, thank you for watching, and thank you everybody for 1,000 subscribers. I really do genuinely appreciate it, and I never thought I'd get this far. I'm currently working on a really, really long video about the Secret Saturdays, and if you remember that show, oof, if you don't remember that show, go watch it. It's on the Internet Archive. It's great. And until then, thank you for sticking around, and I will hopefully see you next time. This unscripted style is not something I do very often, and thank you for listening to me suffer. Good night, everybody!